Support for Veterans Corner Radio is made possible by M&M Printing and the Observer News of Ruskin, Florida.
Hello and welcome to Veterans Corner Radio Podcasts, information for and about veterans. Joining host Joe Mulberger for this edition of the podcast is former Captain Danny Alvarez of the United States Army. Born in Miami and a graduate of the University of Florida, Captain Alvarez earned his commission in 1997. Following his time in the Army, Danny went to law school and as a lawyer became the legal representative to the Tampa Police Union. Since then, he has gotten into politics and he now serves in the state of Florida House of Representatives. Here now is Joe Mulberger with Veterans Corner Radio on Veterans Corner Radio Podcasts.
Welcome to Veterans Corner Radio, a show dedicated to providing information to all those who have served our country's military and to their families. Now, here is your host, combat veteran and educator, retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Joe Mulberger.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's show. You're listening to Veterans Corner Radio, and I'm your host, Joe Mulberger. Today we have a U.S. Army infantry officer veteran, Danny Alvarez. Danny, welcome to today's show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, brother. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. When were you born? Where were you born?
Born in May 7th, 1974, in the great country of the United States, in Miami. So
outstanding.
Miami was still technically part of the United States at that point, if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean.
Miami is sort of sectioned off. What part of Miami were you from?
So proud. So long story is my parents get here in 59 and 61.
From where?
From Cuba. My dad is what's called a Peter Pan kid. He lands in America by himself with his brother. They're parentless for 2 years while my grandparents were waiting to see if the commies would go away. And clearly 65, 70 years later, we're still waiting for the commies to go away. In fact, my grandfather never bought a piece of property, brother, in his whole life, thinking if he just saved his money when he got back to Cuba, he could spend it there because that was always going to be home. So we were born there. That's what makes us, me and all of my family, such hardcore America lovers, because America literally saved our lives. And yeah, so here we are, Miami.
Let's review a detail there. What was your birthday again?
Oh, May 7th, 1974.
All right. So this show will go out forever and ever and ever. But so folks know, it's May 1st. This is May Day. That's celebrated around the world. And so in 6 days, we'll be able to wish you a happy birthday. So in advance, which goes against all German culture, happy birthday to you. You're not allowed to say happy birthday in advance in Germany.
You're not?
No, it's absolutely verboten.
Yeah, listen, Germans, they're just completely, are you German background?
Oh, Austrian. Yeah.
Brother, listen.
So we're like Germans with a sense of humor.
One time I was on a jump, we can get to it, but I was on a jump team in the Army and we were assigned the same aircraft as the German jump team. And literally, you didn't need a sign. You didn't need uniforms. You just needed to pop in and look at the way we were acting to see, oh, that's the German side, and these are the American yahoos. It was very apparent. It was very apparent.
I had a German paratrooper, former paratrooper. We were at some kind of get-together in Germany when we lived there, and he said, why is it that when Americans jump, they have to yell something? Like, Geronimo! And I go, because we're all laid up. And he goes, we don't do any of that. We just step and go. And it's like, well, that's German culture. Everything has to be just so.
100%. They were, by the way, they were great jumpers. They were very technical. They were awesome. But as we were like having a good time hooting and hollering, just getting ready for like altitude, they were literally like, it felt like they were sitting at attention. So I was like, eventually we sat at attention because it got so uncomfortable. You know what I mean? We're just like, now we're staring at each other across this airplane. Like, what do we do now?
Oh my God. What section of Miami did you grow up in? Was it the part where
Westchester.
Goldfinger in the hotel was filmed at, or is it another section?
No. Westchester. It was lower middle class people just trying to make it, getting by. So the story of Miami is, you got downtown and then people started moving westward, right, towards the Everglades because that's where the affordability was. And so there is actually this phrase called white flight. So like the Americans that had been and the Floridians that had been there got pushed out of downtown in the lower parts of the area by the Hispanics that came and they moved to Westchester. And then everyone was like, well, we want to go there. That's nicer. And then we moved there and they moved to Broward. That's the story of Miami.
Wow. Okay, so you're growing up a little bit in Miami. Do you
Right.
stay in Miami? Do you decide it's time to travel, or how does that work?
Well, so I was born in Miami, then raised in Texas. My dad gets a job in Houston in the oil business, kind of related to oil services. He was an engineer, graduated from the University of Florida eventually. And then we got his job there. So I was born, and within a year, we were in Houston. And that's kind of where I grew up. And so it was a yes, ma'am, and boots, like well, that was the norm. And when we moved back to Miami when I was 12, turning 13, it was literally like I was moving to another world for me. My little brothers, it was easier for them to kind of assimilate back in, but my mom still speaks with like broken English. She's got a thick Spanish accent, right? And she was always like, ay, Dios mío, like, my God, well, they're going to eat my child alive. He's not going to be able to handle it. So that wasn't necessarily true. But as soon as I could get out of Miami, I got out. I went to school in New Orleans and at Loyola in New Orleans. I failed out of college and I had to crawl back home to Miami thinking, I think a diesel mechanic will be good. I can be a diesel mechanic, right? And I just got back into college somehow by the push of other people. And here I am. Went to Florida, graduated there.
You went to Florida, so you're a Gator.
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right,
sir.
we'll have the rival. My daughter's a Florida State grad, and
That's where my son is right now.
to pour gasoline on the fire, our son is a University of Georgia grad. So there we go.
You are a family conflicted.
So when we see those family house divided, we're like, nah, we're a house united because that doesn't really affect us too bad. So you go to University of Florida. What do you end up walking away with as far as a degree?
Oh, this is a little bit funny. So in high school, I had worked at the Miami Herald. They had this program for high school kids that they wanted to kind of give a chance to. And then I won this scholarship and worked for the Miami Herald for over 7 years. They paid my way through college. And so remember I told you I failed Loyola, right? And so I wasted the opportunity there and I thought it was over. I go back to work for the summer. Actually, my mom came and picked me up and said, "You're done. Get in the car." And I said, "I'm not done. I'm an adult now. I'm 20. You can't tell me what to do." And she had shown up at my fraternity house like with zero warnings. And the dude was like, "Hey, I think there's a lady that says she's your mom back there." And so I went down there like no shirt, flip flops, your typical like super cocky frat guy. And I'm like, "Oh, what's up, mom?" And she's like, "Get in the car." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." And she says, "Oh, tell that to your grandmother." And I looked around my mom and there's my grandmother. And I was like, "I'll go get my stuff." Because there's like no way. So we literally, like, I don't recall speaking for the 18-hour drive of shame back to Florida from Louisiana. And then so when I got to work, I had this boss. Her name was Susan Birdside. And I mean, this is when journalism was actually like the fourth rail, like the protection, that we needed them to be, the objective thing. Brother, if I ever wrote an opinion when I was a journalist back then, or even the hint of a tone of what I felt about the story, that lady I was so scared of this woman. She was huge. She'd crush you, right? So at the end of this summer, she doesn't know I failed out of college yet. Like I had a 1.6 GPA. And so by the time I'm done, at the end of the summer, all the other people in my program are gone back to school. And she's like, "Yo, why are you still here?" And I was like, "Well, about this college thing, I don't think I don't think it's for me." She says in very colorful language we will not use here, "Get the heck out of my office." And I was like, oh, now I'm done here too. Now I messed up college. Now I messed up this opportunity. I'm done. On Monday, that was a Friday. On Monday, she calls me. And back in those days, we didn't have cell phones, right? So she called my beeper. I called her back and she's like, go to this address. And I said, ma'am, that's in Gainesville. She hung up. I was like, okay, yeah, listen, I was trying to save my job. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I thought I'm interviewing someone. This was the norm. So I drove all this way. I'm saving receipts. I don't even know if I have money to get to Gainesville. And I get there and I meet with the guy she tells me to meet. And I said, sir, I don't even know what the story's about. And he was very terse with me. He was very terse with me. And he sat me down and he has my transcripts. I don't know how he got it at the time, right? So I do know now because remember the Miami Herald had access to my transcripts because they paid for my college. So he's looking at it, looking at me, and he's like flips it back at me. He says, listen, son, I got you 59 credits out of that thing you call a transcript. Go back to Miami, get 1 credit hour at Miami-Dade, and we'll see you in January. Welcome to the University of Florida. And I was like, what just happened? Like legitimately what just happened? And he goes, oh yeah, by the way, you still have to apply, but you're in. Come on in. We'll see you in January. And I was like, whoa. So and this is the lesson I try to teach my kids, brother, and I try to teach everybody. If you're a good person, right, and you continue to do good without the need for credit or, like taking and give more than you take, like life has this way, you know what I mean? And this time, like it was these people helped me, and that's why I try to help other people so much because I would not be here in front of you if it wasn't for Susan and that guy. I think his name was Dr. Alexander. He was one of the deans or the dean. I'm a punk, so I'm still in shock. I don't even know what just happened. So I did that. I went back to Miami, got a one credit hour, and I went straight into the School of Journalism. And then I didn't even do that well either there, just to be completely honest with you, because like, when you're a smart ass, like you think everything, especially I had been a journalist at this point for already 4 years and I had covered real stories and man, I've knocked on doors to ask people what it's like to their loved one have died in that car accident. I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff for my age. And so stuff that they were teaching, I was like, that's wrong. That's not true. You know what I mean? But I just kept my mouth shut. And that's where I found ROTC. And that's where I found lacrosse. I was back to playing lacrosse, and I was like, I cannot get in trouble. This is my saving grace. So I graduated with a degree in journalism. Long story, but I graduated a degree in journalism.
So you end up in the ROTC, the Army ROTC program at Florida?
Yep. That's also a long story. Do we have 6 shows that we can talk for about my life?
Give us the Reader's Digest condensed.
So when I was in New Orleans, I saw Somalia happen, right? And I was really, really, really pissed off. I'm screaming at the television. These are Americans. What is happening? So I was like, I'm going to do something. So while at Loyola, I applied to become a Navy SEAL at Navy ROTC, or so I thought. And that's part of the reason that I failed, because they needed to be a naval officer. I didn't know any of this. I just wanted to serve. I was so pissed, right? I just wanted to go like kill bad guys. And so I thought, this is it. It's right there. I see the Navy sign. So they're like, oh, you need physics, you need calculus. I was like, what do I need calculus to go shoot bad guys? So I did it. I failed. I come back. I enlist. One day I passed by it and I'm like, all right, well, there it is. I'm going to enlist. I'm going to go right there. I went into National Guard as a 12 Bravo, which is a combat engineer. But because I was going to Florida that January, they were going to send me in the summer to my basic training, right? So I'm on campus in January. Fast forward, I'm on campus in January. And I passed by the ROTC building on the sidewalk. And some major is out there. I don't know he's a major. I don't know any rank. And he goes, and I said, hey, I'm going to be wearing that uniform in the summer. I was very proud. I just want you to know, I was very proud. And he goes, you're not going to be wearing this uniform. And I said, why? He goes, this is an ROTC uniform. And I was like, well, I already signed up. So I'm going basic training. And I was like, this snob. I was like, this guy, right? And he goes, well, do they give you money for books and living expenses while you're in college? And I was like, no. He says, do you want that? And I was like, desperate. I was like, yes. He goes, well, go to my basic training. I was like, sir, I'll go anywhere if you pay my books and my, you know what I mean? So I signed up for ROTC. I don't know what that is. You understand that? I understand it's officer. I don't even understand what that is. And man, I get a call like 2 months later And it was like some guy goes, "Hey, I'm Sergeant so-and-so. This Private Alvarez." I was like, "I don't know who Private Alvarez is. Why are you so angry?" And he goes, "You're Private Alvarez and you're AWOL." And I was like, "What does AWOL mean?" Right. So I had to be reporting. I didn't know this either. I was supposed to be reporting for duty like every month at my unit, waiting to go to basic training. But the major said, "Don't worry about any of that. You're now here." And he never called and took care of any of that stuff. So there was a big mess that he had to fix. But ultimately, I went to Fort Knox and I had two great basic training guys. One was an armor drill instructor and one was an infantry guy. And that's where I got the infantry bug.
Wow. So you end up in that basic training, but you end up back at Florida going through the ROTC program. You graduate, you commission, and then you're now an Army infantry officer. How do you get developed as an infantry officer once you graduate and are commissioned?
So you can be an ROTC guy. It's a 4-year program. So if you go in as a freshman, then your freshman and sophomore year count is like that time. Or you can go to a real basic training and they'll send it to you and you catch up on those 2 years. You're a much better soldier if you go to that basic training, right? Because you're getting trained by the men eventually you'll lead. And trust me, they let you know that they're gonna put everything they can into you because you might be their boss one day. And I loved it every moment. I came back and I was like, I was born again hard. And I said, I'm gonna be an infantry guy. And everyone's like, you're crazy. No one wanted infantry. Only like people either chose infantry or the needs of the Army said, hey, you didn't qualify for any other job. You're going infantry. So I was the first part, right? And so first you go to infantry basic officers course. And I had this thing, Joe, where my brain says I could do things that my body didn't know I was telling it was about to happen, right? So infantry is one of those things where it looks good in the movies and they never show you how hard that is in the movies because you only see like the glorious stuff of jumping out of the plane and shooting the guns and blah, blah. So infantry basic course, so it's like 18 weeks, right? And at first there's a lot of schooling, maybe like 6 weeks of schooling, and then it's 1 week in the field, 1 week out. And I want you to know that transition was horrific. And I tell you, like, it was so bad. I kept saying, what have I gotten myself into? You understand that? Like, what am I doing to myself? And I'm telling you, the best part about the military is that it shows you your limits. You think are this, but your limits are, you have no clue where your limit is. You know what I mean? None, right? Because every time you're pushing, you're like, damn, I did 10 times more than I thought I would. But you don't learn that till you go through the crucible of life through the military, right? Whatever your MOS is. And I remember one night on a long road march, like the 90th one of our training, right? And I was like, I'm done. I mean, all I can see is the cat eyes in front of me of like the dude's helmet. And I was like, I'm done. So nobody would tell. I just put myself in the middle of the column and I just start slowing down. We're at Fort Benning, Georgia, in the middle of the night. It's cold. People are starting to walk right on by. And this dude comes up behind me and he's like, I see what you're doing, bro. I get it, but you ain't quitting. And so that guy, like, I was so embarrassed. I was like, no, I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting. You know what I mean? I was like, I got to tie my shoe or whatever. I was totally quitting. Okay. I was totally quitting. And he walked with me. And then I just found myself back in the line because mentally I was just checked out. And then I found myself doing that for other people because they had a limit and they had to get through it. You know what I mean? So it was really cool. We did that. And then airborne school was next. I broke my foot in airborne school, but I didn't tell them I broke my foot. So then I had to recover after that. Ranger school was that, but that broken foot plagued me through Ranger school. So I didn't make it through that. Bradley Leaders course was after that, and then off to Korea for my first unit. So
now, when did you commission? What year was that?
I commissioned in 97.
All right. So how long did you stay in?
I did a total of 6 years.
Okay.
So I actually did 2 while I was in ROTC in the Guard, and then 4 active duty for the combined. And then, I mean, by the way, brother, I totally thought I would retire or die in the military. And like the story, how it always goes, I met a girl. Right. And then life started taking the twists and turns, Bob, the twists and turns of life. I jumped out. We had this show and I was jumping and I hit the target and I did some cool turns to show off. And I thought I was the coolest thing ever. And she was completely unimpressed. And because she was unimpressed, I was like, what's happening? Why do I want more of this? You know what I mean? Like, so next thing you know, I was at that point, I said, okay, well, the Army ain't going anywhere. Like, we're totally in peacetime. Little did we know. I'll join the FBI. I told her I'll never be a civilian. I'll always have like a gun on my hip. I'll always do something. And she's like, all right, cool. So I went to go join the FBI, and then 9/11 hits, right? And so my application is frozen. And now I had taken a temporary job as a pharmaceutical rep. It temporarily lasted 6 years because when I did get into the FBI, my wife at the time was like, yeah, if you go, I don't think we're going to make it. And I was like, yo, this was part of the deal. And, I grew up where family is like the most important thing. Like, my priority is like God and my kids and my family, right? So I was like, maybe this is the path God wants me on. I just think it really sucks. You know what I mean? Because I really wanted to go. The real Danny Alvarez that like would say, hey, babe, I'll meet you there at graduation or send me papers. That's what should have happened. You know what I mean? But for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And then we ended up splitting ways anyway. So I should have just gone, but I wouldn't have my son. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my son is my life. So it all works out in the end. And but that was just the way it went out. So,
Well, good. So you did the FBI. How long were you in the FBI?
No, I never went because
Oh, okay.
remember, she's like, if you don't go, if you
Okay,
go,
all
we're
right.
not going to make it.
So
Oh,
you-
listen, I was so embarrassed again, right? Because like the recruitment process is so long. And I got my letter on a Friday and I'm like, oh, Wednesday is the date. I gotta be in Quantico on Wednesday. And when I didn't show up, I sent flowers. My recruiter was a female. I sent flowers to my recruiters and I called her to apologize. And she said some words and they were well deserved. And she goes, your flowers ain't going to do nothing. I was like, oh God, please help me. And then I got a nasty gram from like the FBI director of training. He goes, because of you, a slot went unopened. And he's right. You know what I mean? But I was trying to
okay.
say,
So it's the splitting, right? The splitting of the marriage, which I'm sorry to hear. And
Thank
you've
you.
got the departure from FBI. You end up going to law school. You become a Juris Doctorate. And then you end up like, what are you doing now? I know that you had done some stuff where you were the legal beagle for the Tampa Police Benevolent Association, but you didn't stop there. What are you up to now?
So now somehow I got myself involved and I'm a state representative. I honestly remember we talk about the twists and turns of life. Like I don't even know how I'm here, to be honest. Well, I know how I'm here. I don't know why I'm here. You know what I mean? I got really pissed off during COVID, and COVID really, really upset me. I told you the American story. Like, we came to America. My family has very real roots in having their rights taken by a government, and I felt like COVID was the closest we'd ever come as a country to like surrendering who we were. And when I got recruited, they expected me to say no because I'd said no like 2 other times in 2 different cycles. So it's just like my name in lights doesn't interest me. My doing the right thing does, or fighting for that stuff. So during COVID, we negotiated as I was the lawyer for the police union. That's what that is. And that keeps me in the police world. I did 3 years at the sheriff's office. That was fantastic. And then I transferred over to the Tampa Police Department's union. And I was kind of just disgusted at what they were trying to do to those guys. And we prevented it really. But I said, man, if this is what they'll do to us when it's when it's a disease that is not necessarily a culling event, it's not like, it's like a less than 1% pass away thing. That's like, there's a lot of diseases that are like that. I'm not giving up my rights for that. So anyway, long story short, that's what got me here. And now I've been 4 years as a state representative, and there we are.
And here you are, state representative to the state of Florida. What's your district?
District 69. It's the southeast part of Hillsborough County. It touches Brandon, goes all the way down to the southeast corner, Fishhawk, Fort Lonesome, Lithia, Riverview. So no cities, just mostly neighborhoods.
So what have you been involved in as far as legislation that has passed?
I've got the average person, if they can pass one bill, you're doing well. And that's what we want. We don't want people just like being able to pass law. We don't need more laws for law's sake. We need less laws, and we need laws that are accurate for what we need them to do. But I've passed, I think it's like 24 bills, 25 bills in the 4 years. Most of them related to veterans, or police and fire. That's one bucket. The other bucket is agriculture, and the last bucket is infrastructure. To me, those are the three pillars of a successful society. You can't have a society that does anything if we don't have safety and security, and those three groups give it to you: veterans, cops, and firefighters. Then ag is very specific. It sounds like what's a dude who's never got like dirt under his nails doing fighting for ag, but you got to fight for them like an animal, because if we do not protect that industry, we will bend our knees to our enemies and then once we depend on our enemies for food, we're done. I mean, you can have all the bullets you want, you can have the strongest army, no food, we're dependent.
But consider that in Hillsborough County in Florida, so that the rest of the world is understanding this, the strawberry crops alone are a multi-billion-dollar industry.
That's right.
And that's just from one county. So that speaks volumes for where you've arrived at today. So, yep, if you're thinking God's got a plan for you, I think you've just nailed it. You went through your various trials and tribulations, but imagine where you're at today, and you're defending military interests, the agricultural interests, and the interests of infrastructure, because everybody wants to come to Florida on vacation. And the number one industry in Florida is tourism, and you can't drive to Disney without, and you can't land on airplanes without all the infrastructure. So here on Veterans Corner Radio, we say our veterans are worth their value in gold. Danny Alvarez, we thank you very much for your time and your service, especially your continued service as somebody who's currently in the as a House of Representatives for the state of Florida. Thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to hearing more of your future as we continue on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother, and thanks for doing this. God bless you, and God bless America.
You've been listening to Veterans Corner Radio with your host, retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Joe Mulberger. The views expressed on this program are those of Joe and his guests, and our opinions based on the best available information. In matters of law or governmental regulation, it will always be best to check with the appropriate agency. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us for the next program on Veterans Corner Radio.
Here's a quick final thought. If you're enjoying these podcasts, why not take a minute to subscribe or mark Veterans Corner Radio as a favorite? It's easy, and you'll be set to be among the first to find out when new podcasts are published. And thanks again for listening to Veterans Corner Radio.